Hi everyone, Stepan here. I'm going to continue covering the games from the Barcelona Open, played this summer. In round 4 I faced about 200 points, 300 points high rated opponent who decided to surprise me with a very aggressive setup and a very aggressive early attack, which usually works if black is not prepared. I wasn't well prepared, but I sort of knew what to do. You're going to see this if you ever play the Reti or English setups or something similar, or if you play the Semislav like I do, you have to know this. Otherwise, you may run into it and lose early on. Anyway, he starts knight f3. I went d5, c4, c6. Now this could still be a million different openings. Of course, I could have reacted with d4 against c4 and so on, but we basically get a normal invitation to the Semislav by black. After knight c3, e6. If white goes d4 here, normal Semislav after knight bd7. He went b3. Now, this could still be several different openings. After bishop to b2, it's a normal sort of Reti for white. After d4 again, we are going to transpose into the queen c2 Semislav. So knight bd7, queen to c2, bishop to d6, very normal. In these positions where there's no pawn on d4 and when white plays the early queen to c2, you don't really take on c4. In most cases, you're going to play as if you were playing an anti-Meran with queen to c2 against an anti-Meran with b6, bishop to b7, trying to play for e5. Which can be accomplished with either queen e7 or castles, rook e8. But a lot of theory here and a lot of transpositions. He went bishop to b2, which is flexible, and I castled, which is a perfectly normal move. Now in this position, white's most common way to play is to go for a sort of a normal Queen's Indian type position with d4 later on. And after, for example, rook e8 to just castle, and now white plays b6, white plays d4, and bishop to b7. This can be reached from literally 20 different d4 openings, also from c4 and knight f3. But instead of that, he played something I'd luckily been looking at before, but probably more than 2 years ago. And he played rook to g1. And this is a very aggressive attempt to basically blow black off the board. He wants to play g4 without losing the pawn. Shirov has played this. It has some similarities to the Shirov gambit, which is a pretty similar position, just with the pawn on d4. And there's only one way to play against this. There is nothing better but to counterattack in the center and use the fact that your king is on g8, safely tucked away, or sort of safely because g4, h4 is coming, and that white's king is still on e1. So you play e5. And I played e5 pretty quickly. I didn't have a lot to think about. This has to be the correct move. And here he actually had a think, which surprised me. I mean, if you play rook g1, you have to expect e5. So that made me think that maybe e5 is incorrect, but yeah, no, it's correct. Okay, and now here's the problem for black. Your center is collapsing, that's fine, but you have these two fluid pawns on e5 and d5, which could both advance with either d4 or e4. And again, with white's king on e1, that could be a problem for white. So the best way for white to play is to take on d5, of course. Now this opens up the c file and poses a very important question to black, which the way you recapture here is going to determine the nature of the position. So if you haven't seen this position before, have a think here. This is a good exercise in strategy and in defense, and recognizing what white wants to do and what he will be able to do depending on how you take. I think this is definitely a critical position, and it's a good exercise. So okay, there are two ways to recapture. Each of them has downsides, each of them has upsides. More common way to take, and during the game I actually knew that you could take both ways, I just wasn't sure which one I wanted to go for. So if you take with the knight, the biggest upside is you don't give the c3 knight the b5 square, which of course is annoying. However, you do give it the e4 square, which again has a downside of you have to move the bishop again, and this knight is actually good. It's not clear that you want to play f5. So for example, if bishop to c7, then just g4. And now you can play queen e7, you can play rook e8, let's say queen e7, developing this is a normal move. h4 and now knight b4. Attacks the queen, puts pressure on d3. If you can plan something on d3 with something like rook d8 and knight b6 or knight f6 and then knight d3, that's great. So let's say you defend the knight, a3, knight d5. I mean, this should be okay for black. I'm not saying it's not good for white. It should be slightly better for white. So yeah, but most importantly, hard to play for black, but an okay position. But after c takes d, I decided to take with the pawn. Now, after you take c takes d, the e4 square is covered, but the b5 square is not covered. Therefore, knight to b5. And of course, you only have one move. You play bishop to b8. At any point, white could decide to grab the bishop pair with knight to c7, which should not be that good for him, or, I mean, it's not worse for white, but giving up this knight, which is, well, the only active piece at the moment apart from the queen, for this, at the moment, passive bishop isn't really a good idea. Okay, so here the main way to continue this position for white is rook to c1, after which we have a thematic breaking of the center for black with d4. And this is what the position is about. You break open the position. If this is taken, then obviously rook e8 and other things come. And more importantly, if it's not taken, for example, something stupid is played like here, then d3. If this is taken, then you can often just go e4. Not in this position perhaps, because it's not, the rook is not on e8 yet, but play rook e8 first. And now if it's taken, it's check. If it's not taken, if white wastes another move, then here, and if takes, then e4. So this is a pattern you have to be aware of. After bishop to b8 though, my opponent played bishop a3 first, which I think just helps me, because I want to play rook e8 anyway, and now he played rook c1. And again, the key move here is d4, which I did consider. I had been looking at it, and after the game, actually, me and my opponent and me, actually analyzed d4 and e4 in this position briefly, and we concluded that d4 is fine. I did not see how good it was during the game or after the game. I only saw it during detailed analysis at home. d4 should give black an advantage, and it should be a palpable advantage, which can probably easily be built up on. So if I go d4 here, as we said, d3 is a threat. Excuse me. So I'm threatening to just win a piece if he does nothing, or dislodge the queen and blockade his entire position. So he has to do something. But there's a very annoying continuation, which of course I didn't even consider during the game, which starts with knight g5. And the idea is, if d3 now, then this can safely be taken, of course. If not d3, if I do anything else, then knight f7 comes, and with this bishop here and this queen here, bishop c4 check is going to force rook e6. So, for example, d3. Okay, take the pawn, threaten to take on f2 with check. Knight f7. ef2 check, king f2, fine. King takes knight. Bishop c4 check. Okay, rook e6 only move, no other moves. Rook e6. Bishop e6, king e6, and now queen c4 check. And again, all of these diagonals are sort of taken. So in this position, you can easily mess up. Like if you go king f5, it's game over. And there's a beautiful way to win for white, and that's queen f7. This reminds me of that game. What was that game? I think it was Pac-Man Pac-Man versus somebody where someone sacrificed the queen on f6 and then played bishop to g7, blocking the king from going to f6 or h6 and then just mated. Yeah, but in this position, queen e8, g4 check, king g5, you're just basically getting destroyed. And after here, just take the bishop. And obviously, white is just winning. But you can play knight d5 to block the queen check and you should still be okay. Yeah, it's still complicated. The point is, like if you take the bishop now, then I have queen b6, I think, to just take the piece back. Okay, so after d4, knight g5 would have been a very interesting game. I should mention that if this is taken, then of course black should be more than winning after something like knight e5, knight b takes d4, takes here. You can see that all of black's pieces are perfect and white's development is just bad. This rook is all of a sudden a problem piece. If after d4 he plays something like knight c7, then I don't have to react yet, I can just play d3. And if bishop to d3, then I just win. Then just takes, and e4, and the aforementioned pattern of winning a piece. After rook c1 though, I didn't react immediately. I wanted to force a trade on c7, which is not a good idea. I played a6. Now this prevents bishop to b5, which isn't really scary, but I wanted to prevent it, and it trades off the good knight. So okay, knight c7 only move. Takes. Okay. And again, in this position, I should play d4. If he plays something like king d1 to get out of the pin, then takes, f takes, e4, knight d4, maybe knight d5. This should be equal. I mean, I don't think black has anything, but white shouldn't have anything either. Especially since I have the e5 square for my knight, and maybe I can get in something on d3. And if after d4 he doesn't do anything, just plays bishop to b2, then I still go knight d5, the rook retreats, maybe knight f6. Again, it should be equal, but here I can probably go both ed4 and e4 and should be fine in both positions. It should liquidate though. But after rook c7, I just played h6. h6 is a dreadful move. Now here's the reasoning. The first point is I never want to allow knight g5 after e4 or d4 to make sure I don't have any issues on f7. And the real thing is, what I wanted to do is I wanted to play knight b8, knight c6, but I didn't want to allow knight g5. So if I go knight b8 here, then he goes knight g5. Obviously I don't have rook f8 because bishop f8. So what do? I just lose. Or I can play bishop e6, but that should be just a bad position for me. So I played h6, which once you explain it makes sense, but it misses out on my opportunities in the position. Okay, now he played d4, preventing me from ever playing d4. I have to play e4. I mean, if I trade, then his knight sits on d4 forever. Not good. Okay, knight d2 and now knight b8. Threatening to trap the rook. If he doesn't do anything, I play knight c6 and then rook d8, and then my f knight comes to e7 and the rook is lost. So he retreats, rook c1, knight c6, knight b1 going to c3 and bishop to d7. And here I was happy. My pieces are finally developed. I have a bit more space. The rook on g1 doesn't make much sense. I mean, g4 is nothing now. The queens are off the board. It's just... I'm challenging the c file. Everything's fine. Knight c3, b5. I want to prevent knight a4, knight c5. I really didn't want to allow that. Okay, bishop d6 coming into my position. And here I started playing very, very poorly. So what I didn't understand in this position is that my e4 pawn is actually a weakness, and that he can actually play f3 to weaken my structure, not only exchanging the center but also targeting e4. which I didn't even consider. I just thought f3 is the break he has to play, but e3 is weak, he doesn't have time for that, blah, 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 blah. So I played the natural looking rook ac8. Okay, and he just started developing. I'll just show you the alternative. After bishop to d6, I should probably play rook e6 straight away. And once the bishop retreats, here's another pattern, b4. And once the knight moves, I can go rook b8 to prevent any infiltrations here for the moment. And then my plan is, for example, after king d2, I go knight a5. If he ever comes in, then I take. If he doesn't come in, then I just take. So he probably has to retreat with something like knight b2. And now, I don't know, everything is defended, should be okay. Maybe I just reroute this knight back into the game. Maybe that's an idea. So this was the way to play this position. Needless to say, I didn't even see this pattern of b4 knight a5. This is something... Okay, I don't want to sound overconfident when saying this, but I think I rarely lose due to not seeing piece maneuvers. I think that's something I'm better at than all other things in chess. But I didn't even see this, so that makes me very upset, and I think I can learn a lot from this game. So this is something I should definitely have seen. Instead, as I said, I played rook ac8. He just developed his bishop. Now I played rook e6. The bishop went to c5, and now again, same thing. Except I want my rook on b8, not c8, because it can actually be hanging in some lines. So again, b4, knight a4, knight a5. Now if he plays knight b6, I can actually just take it, because his rook is hanging. So he probably plays rook b1 to get out of that. Now I take, takes. I don't know, knight d7. This should be okay. Should be okay. Yeah, but instead of that, after bishop c5, I played knight a5 straight away. And after knight a5 and king to d2, I obviously don't have b4 anymore. The problem is I didn't even want to play b4. Why didn't I want to play b4? Because I didn't want to give up the a4 square. But I should have considered the fact that I can just take bishop a4. And here I played, believe it or not, the losing move. And I had no idea this was the losing move at the time. When he played his next move, I saw it though. I played rook ec6, which seems like the most normal move in the world. I mean, what? I'm gonna play knight b7. If he plays b4, I go knight d6, knight c4. What could be the problem here? Well, here's the problem. Bishop e7. And all of a sudden, I'm just losing. My position is simply collapsing. I'm losing the d4 pawn, or I'm allowing f3 and losing the e4 pawn. The d5 pawn or the e4 pawn. So bishop e6 is the only move. There's no other move to save the pawn. And now f3. And I can resign. I almost did. So if I take f e3, then bishop f3, ef3, then bishop f3, and this is falling. I don't have rook d6, I don't have rook d8. He's just going to take on f6. So, for example, like here, takes, takes, and takes. And black resigns. The bishop is better than the knight. His pawn structure is better. He's a pawn up. So after f3 I didn't take, I just went to c7 straight away. Bishop f6, gf6, fe4, de4, knight e4, king g7. This is over. My structure is so bad that he can do whatever he wants. I'll show you what happened. Knight c5, I have to keep defending everything. Everything is weak. He just infiltrates. I'm defending passively. Now he moves the knight away, I have to trade rooks. Here I played f4, trying to complicate things. I wanted to get my king to try and win his d4 pawn. So ef4, king f5, king b6, king f4, d5, king e3, king c7, bishop f5. And here's the issue. Here's the main issue. The h2 pawn is what's losing me the game. that may sound, well, unbelievable, but I don't have a way to stay on this diagonal and sacrifice my bishop. That's the problem. So yeah, first of all, he has to do something about the knight. So if he plays h3 here, then I go b4, and this should probably be equal, because I can now, if he goes here, then I do this, and maybe even black is winning. Maybe even black is winning, yeah. Let's see, what does he do? Okay, a3, I think, to give the knight. Okay, here. Here. I have to save my bishop. I'm actually not sure, because if I try to attack the knight, then my king is on the d file. Let's just use the engine on this one, because I don't want to waste time. No, white is still winning. Okay, +6. Okay, just d7. Okay, bishop takes, king d2. Ah, okay, because he has, wait, king c1, g5. Yeah, okay. So the problem is that I can never keep my bishop on this diagonal. If I could, then probably I'm okay. Okay, he plays b4. I played king d2, knight b3 check, king c3, knight a5, king takes b4, knight c6 check, and here was my calculation. Here's how I was going to draw the game, and we were actually both afraid of this. So what I was calculating is knight e7 for white, to simply drive my bishop away. So here's what I was looking at. I played king a3 in the game because I missed his next move. So my calculation was knight e7, bishop e6. Okay. If this is taken, I have no idea who is winning. I just don't know. I mean, there's no way to calculate everything here because there are too many knight moves, but I was going to try and draw this game. Maybe even if white messes up, black can win. Or after bishop e6, if he plays d6, then I just go king a2. And again, he has knight c6, but maybe I can do something. Probably white is still winning, but there are chances. However, after king a3, he just went knight d4, and I resigned because he didn't see knight d4. I mean, I'm losing anyway, but knight d4 prevents bishop e6, and he just takes with the knight. Obviously, if I move my bishop to g4, then h3. And if I go here, then here. So yeah, I got destroyed. I got destroyed because I didn't play d4 when I should have played d4. I just didn't understand what the position was about. And I have a lot to learn from this game, which is good. I'm always happy when I mess up stuff, which... Well, I'm happy when I understand my mistakes. That means that I can improve on them easily. Thank you for watching. Hope you got something from this game. Stay tuned for more chess. Bye-bye.